they told me we were all like everybody was declared hostile, so we could just blast anybody that we wanted. I wasn't really keen on doing that, blasting a car and then finding, women and kids in it. So I was like, we've got to come up with a way to do this without, scarring my guys for life. So my team leaders come up, they're like, hey, let's, treat this like a vehicle, like we would a vehicle takedown, right? If you know there's a bad guy or you suspect there's a bad guy in the vehicle, how can we do that? So we've got to stop the vehicle. So we get the Marines that we're with to string concertina wire across the highway, just set back like, a little speed trap and talk to the air and wait. And eventually there's a pickup followed by like two or three, I think two, was like a bus and a 5-ton truck that's just packed with people. And the air is watching them come out of Kandahar, come towards us. And every so often, the other two vehicles will pull off, and the truck would drive ahead and scout the route. And so, not necessarily what innocent people or you do. I mean that's So we had a pretty good idea that they were not orphans fleeing Kandahar. So finally, I don't even know what time, like 2 a.m, this pickup comes. We see the lights, and they come screaming down the road, and we had lit the concertina wire with chem lights so they could see it. So they identify it, and then they're like, screw this, we're going to run through it. And I had never seen it before, but you can't run through concertina wire in a vehicle. So they get, snatched up. As they get pulled to a stop, we bring our vehicle. We were in a Humvee up on the road behind them, close in, and then all kind of pile out. And there's the pickup. It's like a dual cab pickup, just stuffed because it's cold. It's cold as shit. I mean, it's below zero. But the back of the pickup was full of shit, but there were three dudes kind of sitting, looking at us. And so damn near me to you. And the two guys on either side were like younger dudes, and they were like totally bundled up. They had weapons, you could tell, but the weapons were all wrapped up in blankets. The dude in the middle, you could tell was, not his first rodeo. So he's big beard, but and his hands are got to be cold as fuck, but he's got them, he has his AK out. And so I try to like sling some verbiage at him, but they're not, my Afghani is non-existent really. So it's funny, and this is, something that we'd been taught about, something I'd never experienced until that point. But, most people who've been in especially a close range gunfight, will, say that, yeah, that happened to me, is how like time just slows down to a crawl. And I felt like I was moving really fast and everything around me was just going so slow. So this old guy, old Mooj, he's trying to press his weapon out, and I'm thinking, this is like comically slow. Like I'm thinking about other things, and then finally I decided, all right, well, it's time to, kind of go to work and let him have it. And then the other guys, and then these guys start piling out of the front of this pickup because they're stuffed in there. It must have been like the guys who lost the coin toss that had to ride in the back. But so we're dropping them. They're like falling into the concertina wire. It's pretty ugly. And then the bed of the truck just like burst into flames. So we're like, oh shit. It starts growing rapidly. So I'm like, hey, let's start bounding back. We're not taking any more fire. We start moving back, and then again, I'm like, holy shit, how's anybody still alive? This truck is like totally engulfed. But it was just they were cooking off, rounds cooking off, and then RPGs start launching.
So it was a group of bad dudes loaded to the gills.
Yeah. We sort that out, let it burn, and then call in air on the other two vehicles, and yeah, we wound up that night. I think there were close to 100 Taliban that we took out, like. Dude. All told.
Wow.
A lot of, most of them with air. But
so where were the other two vehicles in relation to where you were at that time?
They were a couple clicks back, and they had like pulled off the road. So that's the kind of the tactic that they were using.
Yeah.
So them, we didn't have eyes on them, but we had air stacked up like crazy.
Wow.
So it was, and at that point there had been another back at Fob Rhino where we had come from. There was a gunfight, and this was I think right about the same time that the Tora Bora fight was going on. So there was air was in kind of short supply, but we had them pretty enough stacked up that they were keeping eyes on, and we're able to just blast those guys pretty easily.
So with that, at this point, you've been in the military well over 10 years, done a ton of training, and now it's like fucking go time. It's shortly after 9/11, which, the pulse and the emotion of the nation was very different and ready to get some. How was that afterward, kind of reflecting on what had just happened?
It was pretty fucking awesome. It was.
I'm not going to mix words.
No, but for me, I was missed because I was on embassy duty. I missed the Gulf War, and there wasn't a ton of it, to miss. But I was, really, really bummed by that. So when I came back from that, there were, young guys that had, whether they'd actually like seen combat or not, they'd kind of been in combat. So I'm like, man, I kind of missed my chance. And then we came, the infantry unit that I was in right before I went to force, we got tapped to go to Somalia, and then we got pulled off of it at the last minute. So while we were sitting there waiting for those vehicles to come, that night in Afghanistan, I was joking with my guys. I'm like, man, I'm like a bullet fucking repellent. Like it's going to be a bunch of old ladies in a car when they finally show up, and we're going to, wish them well, send them on their way. So I was kind of as surprised as anybody. But one of the things, and that really shaped just the way I viewed a lot of things thereafter. I had been raised by recon Marines that were just adamant about training really, really hard. Making sure that you don't train until you get it right, train until you can't get it wrong kind of mentality. And so I had as a platoon sergeant with those guys, that's the way I had tried to make sure I had trained them. And after, just recognizing, like I said, those, and whenever we went through close quarter battle training, they talked about the Jeff Cooper color codes, the mental preparedness color codes, condition white, yellow, green, or black, white, red, orange, all those. And the FBI would always like come in. We'd have some FBI agents that would come and talk about like combat mindset, and the time distortion and visual perception, narrowing, auditory exclusion, all of those things. And so I knew what was happening while they were happening, but I was fascinated by it. And so after, like the next day, after we got a little bit of sleep, I sat down like individually with each of my guys and I'm like, hey man, what did you experience? Did you have this? Did you have this? And it was really interesting that almost everybody had experienced a lot of the same things. So when I got back from that deployment, I had been at this point, I'd been at Force Recon for so long, they were like, man, you got to go somewhere. So I went to be an instructor and ran our sniper school and our urban sniper school and our reconnaissance course, and tried to bring as many of those lessons into the training as possible.